All ready? So we can go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're in the very last chance to meet up together before our well-deserved semester break. All right, so what we want to do today is just talk about the one final step that we need to get completed to have our base system up and running and ready. And that's getting the LDAP server on the network. Now, LDAP is, ooh, ouch, man, if email came out of the ISO as a nice thick bowl of alphabet soup, LDAP came out more like a bowl of meat. All right, a whole bunch of little twisted threads that go back and forth and intertwine. There's a whole new vocabulary associated with LDAP that we need to understand if we're going to use it. But that's not required for our base system. For our base system, the only thing that's required is to get the LDAP server on the network, and we can leave actually integrating LDAP with our apps until a little bit later. So that's one of the things that we discussed this in the other lab on Monday. We discussed the whole assignment. And so for people who have another class this afternoon, we'll discuss it again. All right, so we'll discuss the whole assignment in some detail this afternoon. All right, but this morning, right, we're just going to cover the basics of it for the base system demonstration that is got a due date now and a submission link on Moodle. So let's start there. Then we'll move on and talk about this last step that needs to be done to get the LDAP server up on the network, and talk about as much as we need to know about LDAP to understand what we're doing, right? Because we need to make just one or two small changes to a configuration file for the LDAP server itself. But mostly what's there is just limited to things that we've been doing all along. There's really basic things that we have to take care of with systems and network administration. File owners, permissions, getting the DNS, making sure everything, all of our names are right in the DNS, right? Making sure that we're getting proper DHCP, subnetted IP addresses, that sort of thing. So let me turn off the camera here. Big reflection in the background. Look at that big reflection on my screen here too. And let's start with, not that. Let's start with what we've got on Moodle here. All right, let me just, this one open. Okay, we've got a new tab here, assignment details and submission links. All right. And in the assignment folder, that's where the whole assignment specification is. All right? Again, we went over that on Monday in the other lab. We'll look at this in proper detail this afternoon. All right. But let's back up one step here. All right. The base system video, this is just a very short video. All right. File type is restricted to WebM or MP4, so I don't have to chase every obscure codec that people might might decide to use. Okay, and that's due 24 October, which is day 14, 10 days time, meaning Sunday, 24th of October, which is the end of our semester break. All right. Now, there's also a link here for assignment groups. All right. We'll take a quick look at the assignment to see how that shakes out right now, just to mention. But I think this one opens up at 11 o'clock today. All right. So just to say, we can have the big rush for assignment groups coming after our class. Let's just take a quick look just to get a kind of overview. Ooh, wait a minute, where did it go? There it is. All right, so the way this shakes out, all right, is the whole assignment is 45% final exam, 55% of your mark in this class, pretty much 50-50, all right? In terms of groups, the group size, standard group size is 3, all right? You can have 2. Special circumstances, we might be able to accommodate 4, but we don't like to do that, all right? So we need to plan on 3 members, 3 group members, all right? Now, there's an individual component and a group component, right? But what it shakes down to is here at mid-semester, we have the base system presentation, which is a short video, all right? And then at the end of the semester, there is a report that shows how you implemented some enhancements, some extensions to the base system. So we can't really, I mean, the real point of the base system presentation now is to show that you're ready to go on and build new things on top of that, extend its capabilities in one way or another. All right. And there's a whole list of things too, enhancements, potential enhancements, all right? And again, we'll talk about that this afternoon in detail, but just the big picture, that's what's there. So the A1 here is the base system video, the demonstration, all right? And that's all we need to be concerned about right now. So just a short video, all right? Show your VMs running, show the directory home vmail on the mail server and MC so I can see the user accounts that have been created, the ones that have been The ones that have received email, well, because Dovecot, very useful, creates those automatically when mail is received for a user. All right. Log into Squirrel Mail, open an email message so that I can see from and to, and either from or to should be your personal TP number email. And then number 4 here is the one that we haven't touched yet. What we'll touch on today, log into PHP LDAP admin. You can do that just by opening another browser tab or going back to the Monkey homepage, click through on the link. All right, connect to the server, log in, and just expand the tree that you'll see there along the left side. Keep it simple. No sound, no subtitles, no pictures are required. All right. And use a proper tool to make it. That's all the rules that there are here. Now, this one, there's a couple of suggestions that somehow got a little bit separated. All right. But we come back to our general tab up here. All right, hang on a minute. Come back to our general tab up here, topics by week. All right, again with our plan for the semester here. Down at the bottom here, base system video. All right, same instructions, but 2 suggestions, all right, for a tool to make the video. All right, these are, I use Screencastify for all of the videos. All right, has a 5-minute limit, which is about twice as much. Well, maybe not twice as much, but certainly rather generous for what we need for our base system video submission. All right, so Screencastify, you get it out of the Chrome store, you plug it into your Chrome, and you know it works basically the same way as pretty much exactly the same way, same interface. Sorry, it's pretty much exactly the same interface as screen sharing in Teams, right? And you just go through the motions, you get it set up, you start Screencastify. I use it because it has a little countdown timer, plink, 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 for 10 seconds so that I know when it's going to start recording. All right, I found that convenient. Awesome Screenshot is also quite nice. All right. Other people I keep seeing in the base system videos use something called Bandicam that puts a watermark on the video, but it doesn't interfere with progress or anything like that. So, you know, that's fine. Now, there's a question over here in the chat, a very good one. All right. Yeah, OBS. All right. Again, everybody can have their favorite. I don't really mind, but no, no standing back with your phone and recording the screen. That's just too much of a hack. I mean, this is not video editing class. This is SNA, but still, we want to get the proper tool for the job. Okay. No max size, but don't go crazy with the resolution. Lowest is fine. I know some people have their system set up for doing things like recording games or whatever, where you want super high resolution. This is much more human level. And so whatever low resolution is fine. So I say Screencastify is a very simple tool. There is nothing fancy about it, right? And it's perfectly sufficient. Coming back to Moodle for a moment, there is, back in the assignment details and submission links, sample-based system demo right here, all right, done with Screencastify, all right. If I open this one in a new tab here, we'll see that it's 2 minutes, 55 seconds, all right? And I wasn't doing this particularly quickly, all right? But I did have my virtual machines open and set up so I don't have to record the boot process. And, you know, really this is all it takes. Show the directories, come over to Google, come over to Chrome and log into my web server. There we go, 252. Oh, that was a little, now right here, all right, on the main Monkey web page, you can see there is a, get the magnifier going here. We've got a handy link on the home page here for Squirrel Mail and for LDAP admin. So all you need to do is, you know, click through and Squirrel Mail, log in, open an email. I can see my FACO TP number here in the 2 and from mail admin. I just want to see your email address from or to. That's fine. All right. And cruise along here a little bit more. Come back, LDAP admin. All right. Again, we need to log in here. And once we get logged in, all right, then you just come over here and click the plus. All right, it's just the sort of interface that we're accustomed to. You click the little plus on the edge and it will expand the tree one level at a time. And that is everything that is required for the base system video. Okay, it's all done. And the reason this is so simple is because you can't make that video unless you have done all of the steps in the proper order and done them completely. So that's all that's required. And again, mine took almost 3 minutes. All right. Some people I've seen ones that are as little as a minute and a half. All right. But you know, if you're all set up and everything works really quickly in terms of response times, you're in great shape. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, so that's what we've got for the end of semester break, about 10 days time. All right. The last thing we just want to talk about is getting that LDAP server on the network. So let's talk a little bit about LDAP and try to avoid the complications for now. We're going to leave the complications for later, I think. All right. But the idea here is that this is the network directory service. All right. And this stores information, easy way to look it up. Now, the main thing that we can see with the LDAP server, there's two things we can see with it. One is single sign-on systems. If I have, just like the APU green and white screen that comes up when we're logging into Moodle sometimes or logging into some services, okay, that's single sign-on. That has an LDAP directory in the background, okay? The other one that we're going to see is when we use an address book in our email client that has an LDAP directory in the background. Our mail client sends a query to the LDAP server saying, give me all of the people or all of the objects that fit this search criteria. That one comes back and it gets displayed as an address book. So it's a really core part of our network, right? It's a really core service that we need to provide. Now, I'm just going to skip over some of the details here, all right? And again, I think this one is just to get our minds around why this is so important to the corporate network, right? It's that allows us to find information about other people, and with certain configurations, we can have all kinds of system information as well. So here at APU, you go to the lab and it puts up the login screen. That all is controlled centrally by what the Windows network calls a domain controller, right? Windows calls its, Microsoft, let's say it this way, Microsoft calls its version of LDAP, they call it Active Directory, which is a very nice name, good branding in that. But Active Directory is really just an LDAP server. We use a different application called OpenLDAP because it's open source. There are a few other ones around, all right? But yeah, when we come to the entrance and we stand in front of the camera and get the facial recognition thing going, matching that to our ID photo in the LDAP database. It's very important behind the scenes for all kinds of services like that. All right, let's skip over the object types, but let's just keep this in mind, all right? When we say expand the tree for the LDAP server, that's because it's got a hierarchical database model, all right? Now, when you did your introduction to databases, you might have touched on the hierarchical model as a kind of legacy historical model because that one focuses on the relational model and structured query language, right? And it's true, hierarchical model was an early implementation, like, 1960s when they were landing a man on the moon, right? The hierarchical data model was at the forefront, right? But the hierarchical data model, just like this one, we've got a little down arrow here instead of a plus sign, all right? But it's the same thing here. We put things into categories, classes, and we can query whatever level of detail that we like. And that's what we saw when we started up the LDAP server. For us, the LDAP server has one tree like this already installed, okay? It's there, it's ready, right? And when we look at the assignment, we will see how we can extend it and use it, right? But there's one there already, so all we need to do now is just get the LDAP server onto the network, all right? And just take a look at the entries that are already there, already installed. Take a look here, because I think that actually might be as deep as we need to go. All right, so there's just a little bit of a note about the alternatives, some alternatives that are available, okay? But as I say, we're using OpenLDAP. The other one that in the background we use all the time is Microsoft Active Directory. Right, and this is where we get a lot of tangled threads, RDMs and DITs and CNs and DCs and, oh, ouch, OUs and all of this, that I say, let's not go into it right now, right? Let's just focus on what we need to do to get the LDAP server on the network, right? And get it to where we can go to our base system demo. Oops, I opened that one in a new tab. And this is all the way down here, right? To, first of all, back up just a little bit more, right? Get connected to the LDAP server, right? And get logged in. Back up on that one. Get logged in and take a look at the pre-installed database that is there. There we go. Okay, let me pause it right here for a minute. Let's just plus this up. I just want to point out two things, all right? One here is the hierarchy, all right? These are people connected on our network, Usernet A, Usernet B, Usernet C. And that's because we can use this for Dovecot and Squirrel Mail to for Dovecot to manage the accounts, and for Squirrel Mail to use this as an address book. Okay, so all good. That's all we really need to know. What we're seeing here, because again, this is the pre-installed one for us. One other thing though, up here, you see this broken icon here. It says broken link. It didn't load. It's not a proper picture like the rest of these. These can sometimes, PHP can be a little bit slow to pass these back from the server to the browser, all right? So sometimes you'll get maybe one or two of these, and the rest will just be broken like this one is here. Don't worry about it. It is not important at all, right? And again, after you do this 2 or 3 times, the browser gets them into the cache, and so they will all show up, all right, eventually. But the first time you connect to the server, you can expect a bunch of these to come up with this broken picture icon. Don't let it bother you. Okay. Just check over here. All good. All right. Now, let me just, one thing on Moodle here. All right. TinyNet-based system videos. This is what we'll do in a little while, all right? They're all normal checks. That's extremely important, all right? No video for configuring the LDAP server. You can do it, all right? Just a little bit of a quick look at the, this kind of overlaps with the demo-based system video that we just looked at, right? But we do need to get into the My TinyNet site for a moment. And let's roll this up. Fix the menu with a reload. Here in configure LDAP, right? LDAP concepts is about the DITs and the hierarchies and all of the vocabulary, all right? We're trying to avoid this as much as we can today, right? The only thing that we need to be clear about is this idea of the hierarchical database that, and again, DIT, one here, O equals tinynet.edu. That's the one we have pre-installed, pre-configured with our LDAP server setup. Using LDAP, adding a DIT, those are potential, possible, optional enhancements that are on the assignment for the end of the semester, right? And again, we'll talk about that in some detail this afternoon. So you don't need to worry about these three. The only one you need to pay attention to here is the LDAP server. All right. Configure the LDAP server enough to get it on the network. All right. And that's all we need to do. just get this enough to get it on the network so that we can see it. That means it's going to connect to our DHCP server. It's going to have its name in the DNS, all right? But it's just going to sit here a little bit isolated with just this one service that will access it, PHP LDAP admin. All right? This person lookup is one that is later. We're not configuring that for the base system demo. So once we have PHP ready in our web server, LDAP admin comes right along with that. It's a PHP app just like Squirrel Mail. So it's already there. All we need to do here is the essential configuration, right? And that starts down here. First step, change the owner and group on the log file. All right, it's done here. We can do this in MC. It's just easy, pick it off the list. All right. syslog.conf, make a little bit of a change to the log level. All right. Just so the slappy.log gives us some useful information. Since we changed the configuration file for our syslog, we need to stop it and restart it. General rule, always, if you change the configuration file for a service, stop the service and restart it so it rereads and restarts with the new configuration. Normally, services don't constantly read their configuration files. Fix the LDAP startup file and make a symlink. That's right. It goes all the way back to first things first. We know how to do that. That's no trick. Final step, right, is for the server itself, the configuration file. For whatever reason, they call it slapd. All right. Two things to do here. First one, just comment out one log level directive. There are two at the top of that file. All right, so comment out the first one, uncomment the second one. All right, again, this fixes things up so that we get useful information in etc in var log slappy.log. All right, we just have to make those changes so that we get useful information from the server when it's running and when queries come through. All right, and the last one is configure anonymous access. All right, and this one just has a little bit of an explanation here. All right, and again, some of this relies on LDAP jargonization. All right, but just take note here that this is the root password. This is the password that you use when you log in to LDAP admin. All right, and the only change you need to make is right down here in this access to star space, here where it says by users read, by star auth. All right, you just need to change that to by star read, which is pretty trivial, all right, but it helps to read up on that and know what you're doing. All right, so get the server started. You can do that with a reboot if you like, because you fixed the configuration file and you're ready to do your base system video. That's really all it takes. A couple of notes here on errors that sometimes people have encountered, but you made your base system right. You've got the all the steps done in first things first, then you'll be fine with this one. And remember, that's where to find the root password, right, that you need to get logged in to PHP LDAP admin on your video. Any questions on that part? Yeah, and that's all there is left. Let me go back here for a minute. Here we are. Let's try this one. Basically, we're just saying this is the LDAP server is properly connected to the network. It's working fine. And there it is. Open the video in a new tab. There we go. Oops. Yeah, so this one just reviews that, I think. All right. It just doesn't show the typing and all of the things one by one by one, but it just reviews the page the same way we have. All right. And there's my LDAP server up. All right. Check it, make sure that I've got the right IP address. All right. My mail server, web server, gateway, all open there. With netstat minus TULP. All right, you can see that slapd is here on the LDAP port. Oops. Just come back to my browser. Use the LDAP admin link there. Right? There comes the login screen. This is where you've got to pull out that password from the slapd.conf. Right? You can refer to it on the web page. We just saw it. And this is all we can do with this right now. Listen up. PHP LDAP admin is the only app. All right. You can see again, there's a different broken one here, but just expand the directory tree a little bit like that. And as the people in the UK say, Bob's your uncle. I don't know why they say that, but what it means is all finished, all good. We will discuss enhancements. Yes. Okay. So yeah, we'll get to that this afternoon. What's the password for this Google Mail? Whatever you used, and you know, All right, so yeah, that's where your mail logins are. All right, it's probably admin if you follow the simplest instructions. We just changed the username, left the password the same well, that's what I did. And when I set it up, because we're just doing proof of concept here, we can go back and enhance our security anytime, right? But yeah, I just use the same password. So mine is always admin. It depends on what you did in your configuration file. All right, tell you what, let's do. Let's take a little break, and then we're going to come back and just do an overall check. Just review some of the overall checks. We're going to look at what I call the all normal situation. All right, this is 923. Let's come back. We'll turn that 23 backwards. Okay, here we go. All right. So let's take a few minutes to talk about checking our system to make sure that everything's ready. What it should look like when this base system is set up properly and everything is ready to run. All right, it's a little bit on the debugging side, but you know, we have to be realistic and say, yeah, bad things can happen to good people, and maybe sometimes it's not even our fault. All right, there are a couple of things where it's not our fault. Windows can interfere a little bit with the proper functioning of our network. So that's where we want to focus now, is on those kinds of consideration. Okay, so let me just close up a couple of extra windows here. And let's go back to cameraless mode. All right, so there's two resources on this here on the base systems video section. And they're right up at the top, because once we get finished with the LDAP server, 10 days time, submit that video. All right, we're all done with all of these steps, except this one, but never mind. That one again is for the assignment. But quick check. This is what we call the all normal baseline. All right. It's what I was just showing a little bit of when at the beginning of my sample base system video demo. All right. Now, this one, obviously, this one is a video. All right. This one is a PDF document. Okay, and I think I'm just going to use this one because I think the subtitles in the video are a little harder to see, and this one has things highlighted in a slightly different way. Now, let me see if I can size this, resize this a little bit. Obviously not. There we are. Get the right balance between what we can see here and what we want to see. Okay, so the first thing we want to check is to make sure our subnets are correct. All right. Now, step one toward that is in VirtualBox itself. All right, this is the old interface, but it's under Tools, all right, and it's called the host network. All right, make sure that our Windows host only adapter, all right, has a 56 IP address and DHCP is off. All right, because if that's not the case, then we won't have the network architecture that we expect. We won't have the connectivity that we expect. Second thing, all right, when we start our VMs, all right, start the gateway first. let the gateway get to this login screen before you start any of the other servers. You don't need to log in, but we need to make sure that DHCP DNS mask is up and running here. All right, but when we get to this login screen, we can have confidence that it is ready. All right, so start the gateway first, let it get to the login screen, then start your other servers, okay, and double check their third one on the IP address, all right, NetA56. That puts our Windows on NetA, NetB66, NetC76, right? Down here one more, all right? Now, hold on just one second. One more thing. ETH0 on the gateway, if this has no IP address assigned for ETH0, it is not a problem, okay? It's no problem because you don't really rely on it here. The ones we rely on are ETH1, ETH2, ETH3 on the gateway. All right, so if there's no address set for ETH0, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. All right, and this one basically repeats that. It just shows the configuration, all right, and the address ranges that are assigned for NetA, NetB, and NetC in the DNS mask configuration file on the gateway. All right. And there's always going to be this 252 address on the web server, all right? And we'll talk about why that is. It's for a secure communication between the web server and the browser, all right? But you have to be sure that there is a first address from TinyNet DHCP, all right, that has a 56 as the third one here. Okay, just check in here. Pop it in the chat if you've got a question. All right. Now, this is the second important one, all right? It's called netstat minus TULP, all right? And this is something extremely important because you need to make sure that your proper services are running on each of your VMs, all right? And you can use this as a reference. Just to say though, all right, this is summarized on the I lost it on the web page here. All right, some of these things will change. All right, and the important things that change are the PID, the process ID, first number here on the side below the protocol. All right, so the bottom one corresponds to this protocol monkey. All right, PID here is going to be different on your system than it is on my system. It's going to be different from time to time on your system because it's a random number assigned by the operating system. But monkey on the HTTP port, DNS mask domain, all right, and the same, all right, here, where'd monkey go? Monkey HTTP port. Everybody's running that. Everybody should be running SSH. Everyone should have Telnet. Everyone should have boot PC. Okay. Well, that's why that one is underlined, because that one's also here on the gateway. All right. What's missing here on my LDAP server? I don't have my SLAPD on the LDAP port, all right, which I really should have done for this picture, but obviously I didn't. Right? On the mail server, we've got postfix and dovecot, all right. Listening in on IMAP and SMTP and submission, all right. Same up here on the gateway, all right. The other thing that's running up here is DNS mask, DNS mask, DNS mask, DNS mask. Now, just one recommendation, all right. If you want to get this green host name with its IP address back, you can just use this command, mytyip. You just type that in, and this pops up for you on your server. Just a convenient way to get that back. All right. The other thing is that when you look at NetStat on the gateway, DNS mask listens for IPv6 traffic. And, you know, that's not a problem. We're not using it, but it's just a feature that's there. The one thing that doesn't help us, though, is that adding anything else to this list makes the top one scroll off. Right? So if on the gateway you say -TULP4, it will fit all on one screen. All right, if you just put in netstat -TULP like we do for the other servers, okay, then you're going to miss out a couple on the gateway here. They're going to scroll off the top of the screen. Just to be aware of. While we're here, I'm just going to point out, you see these ones that say listen, and then these ones don't. What's the difference? The difference is that these are UDP, all right? DNS mask on the domain port, UDP, DNS mask on this random high number port, UDP, DNS mask on the bootp server port, UDP, DHCPCD, bootp, UDP, okay? So the UDPs don't have a state here, right? Under certain circumstances, the state here will show connected rather than listen, all right? But when we're not doing anything yet, when we're just checking things after the boot up, right? They're all going to come, all the TCP ports are going to have a state of listen. UDP ports don't have anything there. Right, normal processes and TCP, UDP listening ports. Some reason SLAPD got left off my LDAP server here. Just to keep that in mind. Now, this is the one that's mentioned for the assignment, okay, is that On the assignment, if we look at the assignment, we'll see it again this afternoon, but there's a box there. Let me bring it back here. Box in this one? Yeah. Screenshots used to document enhancements. In the assignment, right, need to show your TP number and the prompt, right, which means that you need to change the host names for each of these machines and change the C names in etc dnsmas.d. But that is optional for the base system demonstration. That's what it says right here. Custom host names are optional. Well, if you get around to doing it now, that's fine. If you leave it for later, also fine. Ooh, that's the end of that one. Okay, I think this one we cover basically the same territory. Let's check it out. It's only 3 minutes long. Summary of the important things to check. Host-only networking. Again, I'm sorry about that. That's the version 5 interface, but you'll be able to track that one down. You just use the big tools icon there and go to host networking. Check your subnets. Again, this is just a thing. Taking a look at etc and dnsmas.d and the DHCP configuration file there. The last number is a random number from the proper range. CD Wiggly takes you back to your home directory. And see what that is. It's the root. Check TCP, UDP, TULP listening ports. Again, if you just put a 4 on the end, it will fit on one screen. Change that to a 6. You can see the IPv6. And you can see that DNSMask is ready for queries on the using IPv6 addresses as well. Let's see if we got the SLAPV running this time. But it's a good habit to be in when you're getting started, you get things set up. Check your services with netstat minus TULP. All right? The first thing that And you can get in the habit of making it the first thing that you do, right, to check and make sure that your services are running. Because if your services are not running, then you're not going to be able to achieve the results that you want. Let's see if the LDAP one shows up here. Nope. Should be SLAP-D, TCP, SLAP-D, LDAP port showing up there. And yeah, all right, that's exactly the same as the PDF that we looked at. Okay. Any questions or concerns there? If not, let's just, if you can get that all normal, you get the last thing done with the LDAP server, and you're ready to make your video. We got a few minutes left here, so tell you what, let's do. Let's move and talk a little bit more about the assignment. Okay. The SLAP-D.log will be empty until fix permissions. Fix permissions. Say fix iflog. Fix. Got the server. All right. As long as it's there, that's all you got. It's going to be empty until you get those steps done that we talked about when we started off this morning. All right. And again, none of those steps are particularly unique or new at this point, right? Because it's all things that we've done before, just the one little edit to slapd.conf for anonymous access. What permissions? Oh, check the page called where is this? Configure LDAP. I think it's called, there it is, LDAP server. Oops. Hey, where'd you go? Configure LDAP server. Notice it has the detailed step-by-step for what needs to be done to get the LDAP server configured properly. Okay. Any other questions right yet? Okay. So we talked about this Monday, we'll talk about it again this afternoon, but just for anticipation and review, come back over here to Moodle and the assignment details and submission links. All right. The assignment specification in the assignment folder has 4 documents here. All right. The group work evaluation, just don't worry about it until the end of the semester. It's just that workload matrix means nothing to me. All right, group work evaluation, separate submission, that works better for me and for my external examiners. All right. There is a template project report here. All right. Again, don't need to worry about that till later in the semester. Then there is the assignment specification. All right. That's the one that we looked at here. This is the one that I sent out to the external examiners to get approved and things like that. All right. And this just has the bare bones of the requirements. All right. Basically what it has here is a list of enhancements. All right. So this is where those other 2 parts of LDAP come in. All right. When we look over here, configure LDAP, we need to do this part for the base system video. This part's all the terms and definitions. This is enhancement 1.1, and this is enhancement 1.2. 1.2 is separate, all right, but it's an enhancement to an enhancement, all right? I can't put them together. And if I just lumped it all together, it would be too big, all right? So we break it apart like this. There are a couple others that are like this, all right? But if it says it's a separate enhancement, it just means there is a dependency here, all right? Do 1.1, then if you want to, may, not must, move on and go one step farther, right, with the LDAP server. There is sudo that's used. Ubuntu will see all kinds of useful commands prefaced by sudo. This is a little bit of a controversy in the systems administration community, all right? But essentially, sudo in Linux is the counterpart of run as administrator in Windows, okay? And lots of people like it that way. So this is an opportunity to get a feel for it, see how it works. Virtual servers, oh, here's another one with where we can set up the virtual servers, give each person their own personal website, right? without running a whole bunch of web server processes. But, right, so we can do that. We can give everybody their own website. And then once we get that done, it's pretty easy to move that so that we have all of our files stored on one server, and we have the web server on a completely different server, and we do some directory sharing. We share a directory across from the user server to our web server. Okay, that is a fundamental thing that we would be doing with cloud computing, because it really is a more secure setup. Protocol analysis using the packet sniffer, IP tables, writing firewall rules. Everybody should be able to write firewall rules and understand it. Network computing people are going to be doing this on Cisco hardware in much the same manner, right? But we can do it on our Linux servers as well. Centralized syslog server, and a little bit of practice with regular expressions, running arbitrary services across the network with and viewing log files on 2 servers in one screen using multi-tail. Here's another one. We can enhance that one. Once we get the basic part set up, we can enhance it with regular expressions. All of the people in computer science have a class this semester called computing theory, right? And in computing theory, you talk about state machines and context-free grammars and regular expressions. This is a chance to build a little bridge, a little bit of overlap between this class and that class. S-tunnel, that's for our secure communications between our servers. Oops. Right. The little lock it up with SSL on all of these lines of communication, right? Rather than separately configuring LDAP and dovecot and postfix and postfix, all right, PHP, each one individually, each one separately, each one with their own meters of documentation on this topic. We use a simple system that sits in the middle and one common system for all of these services. It's an application called S-tunnel, all right? But that's what that enhancement is about, is secure communication between all of the servers and a HTTPS secure connection between our host system browser. I'm always using Chrome, and the TinyNet web server. Some people also like the idea of setting up a VPN. The OpenVPN people hate the way we do our setup here, but it is very simplest way, and it's easy to move from this simple configuration to the more complex configurations that the OpenVPN people recognize as proper. Right? So that's a possibility. The classic way to get software in Unix and Linux is to download C source code from a repository and compile it ourselves for our platform and whatever our specific preferences are. All right, understanding the Linux build system is a nice thing to know, right? So there's a couple of there's a couple of archives of sample code to compile, install a library, an application that uses that library, and we put it into kind of a little more fun context, all right? Just because the real purpose is to understand how the Linux build system works. Couple of special recommendations for CYB people, and again, we'll talk about that this afternoon since our Thursday group is all CYB and ISS, and all of them have a class called Ethical Hacking. Next semester, the idea here is that ethical hacking is no fun if you're just kind of poking at your local host machine. You want to have a network that you can do your red team, blue team exercises with. And we can make a special configuration of the TinyNet that automatically generates traffic. We call it NetR. So if you want to hijack TCP connections or I don't know, grab them with your packet sniffer and modify them and send them back on their way, whatever you like to do, right? There's automatic traffic generated there. And it's a kind of isolated configuration. So if you have other kinds of virtual machines, it's easy to get them onto this victim network, right? So that you can attack it at will without worrying about our APU ITS guys getting all upset. So that's what's there. Now, I think somebody asked this question before, right? The way this works is you need to pick your individual enhancement, right, off that list, and there need to be group enhancements from there as well. So for a standard group of 3, the final report would have 1, 2, 3 individual enhancements plus 3 group enhancements. That means you would pick 6 from 15 that are here, right? So there's a wide range, and the whole idea here is that you've got a lot of flexibility. I know that means you've got to make a lot of decisions, and some people don't like to make decisions, but steel yourself to the task and everybody picks a group enhancement, right? And then the group together, they decide on 3 more to pick out of there. And again, there's a lot there, and you can just follow your interests or your field of study, or if you've got a little bit of experience, maybe one thing is going to look more attractive than another. They're all there. It's all pretty much open choice. Just keeping in mind that some of these have those dependencies that if you're really interested in adding a DIT to an open LDAP directory, you're going to need to get your applications using LDAP before that. It's the only way it makes sense. Now, the thing is, all right, this assignment specification is short, to the point, and really not all that. I mean, it's good because it's a concise list, right? But the more interesting and useful document is this one called the project resources document. Project resources document is set up like the assignment, but all right, first, let me just highlight this. Oops. On again. Wait. Just highlight this. All right. This one has links and pointers for each one of those enhancements on the list. All right. But I think we want to make clear, and that's why it's in big red letters right here at the top. This is not a research project. You've got plenty of research projects in other classes. This is a practical project. All right. So you're going to find that the Linux community is very generous about sharing their experiences, but lots of times, more often than not, about 80 or 90% of the time, they don't tell you what version of the application they're using. They don't tell you what distro they're using, and you cannot follow their instructions exactly and get the same result because you're working in a different environment. All right? So that's why the resources document is here. It points you places on the TinyNet site where the instructions have been tested for our TinyNet platform. All right? Once in a while, you'll find another link in here. Again, that's one that has been checked with our platform. It's a reliable resource. You want to follow anybody else's instructions, you're on your own. All right? But just expect that they are not going to work exactly. Okay, so custom host names. This is the detailed way to get that done. All right. And again, this one goes through with each one of the enhancements, points out places on the TinyNet site with the relevant documentation. All right, so for virtual servers, a little bit more extensive for that one. All right, the NFS part, a little bit, seems a little bit more straightforward. The packet sniffer, IP tables, centralized syslog server, each one has pointers in here in the resources document, which makes the resources document rather more interesting than the plain assignment specification. And one more thing to take note of is we come back here. Oops. Hold on. Come back here to our general tab. We take a look at the topics by week. We can see that actually, okay, after the semester break, we'll be talking about topics and theory and relating them to the enhancements that we have there. Right? We're going to start off with redirection and script.io, which goes into the pseudo enhancement, IP tables enhancement, S-tunnel, OpenVPN enhancements, all right, talk a little bit about regular expressions, the shared folders, monkey shines, the virtual servers. Okay, so we will be talking about these enhancements over time after the semester break, all right? Again, to make sure that we got the theory that guides our practice. Right? It's not just an empty exercise in following the instructions. It's about understanding why we do what we do. Okay, so that's where we're headed. But all of that comes after the base system video. The base system video comes in 10 days' time. Okay,